everybody. So I'm back again with yet another Australian woman writer and yet another adventure in Australian literature. But before we start, remember, we have a shop, we don't have Patreon, we don't have sponsorship, and we don't have advertising. If you want to support us, come to our shop. And in our shop, we have books, among other things. We have this book, which is historical fiction set in Katoomba. We have this book, which is funny verse. We have this book, which is set in rural Australia and tells the story of a rural community in the 1960s. We have this book, which is a sci-fi comedy. The kind of, if you're a Red Dwarf or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type of person, you'd like this. Trust me. We have this book to help you write your great Australian novel. We also have t-shirts. Here we've got Howl and Falstaff. We also have Romeo and Juliet, Catherine and Petruchio, the Milwaukee Family Players, Julius Caesar, and Brutus. So, you might want to check them out. And finally, we have templates and writing services. So this one is a character creation using tarot cards. We have all sorts of different templates. Check them out. There's stuff on beta readers. There's stuff on research. We also have mentoring and readers' reports. So if you would like to work with my alter ego one-on-one in a mentoring session, or you would like to have your manuscript read and assessed before you send it to publishers, that's also on the website. So that's that part over and done with. And let's get on with our novel for the week. And our novel for the week is Amy's Children by Olga Masters. Now, you may never have heard of Olga Masters, but I can guarantee if you're Australian and you're my age or older, you've heard of her son, Chris Masters. Chris Masters is, I think he's retired now, he's still alive, but he has for many decades, through the 80s, 90s and into the 2000s, been one of Australia's great investigative journalists. He's written several books, and you're probably going to know him more than you would know Olga Masters. Now, Olga Masters is a very interesting writer. If you have ever thought, oh no, I've left it too late, my run is too late, I can't possibly make it at my age. Olga Masters didn't get published until her children were all grown up. She was not published until the early 1980s, and I believe that would have made her in her 50s or 60s. Okay? You are never, ever, ever too late to do what you really want to do. If you really want to do it, there is time. You can do it. So, Olga Masters, Amy's Children. Amy's Children is set during the Depression. And Amy is a young woman, very young woman, who has been abandoned by her husband, leaving her with several small children. And she is now back with her parents and her children, no husband, in the middle of the Great Depression. So Amy is not in a great place. She is also not very old. She's clearly got married very, very young. She's only in her early to mid-20s, and she already has multiple children. Okay? This is not actually that uncommon for women of her period. And Amy is a character that people are quite critical of. she is one of those characters that people do not like. She is a mother who doesn't particularly like her children. Yeah, one of those, which is generally conceived of as a monster, because the concept of a mother is so fetishized, it is so considered so wonderful. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just seen as so saintly and so perfect that mothers who don't come up to that symbolic part are generally seen as less than. And to be a mother who is both reluctant and does not particularly like their children is to be seen as one of the biggest, most awful, transgressive things in the world. And so generally speaking, when writers write characters who are women who do not like their children, they are the monster of the piece. And as readers, we're often expected to see them in that light. They're the monstrous mother, they're the abusive mother, they're the neglectful mother. Olga Masters encourages us to sympathise with Amy, which is quite radical. Amy is no different to a great many women of a time when your options were so limited. When your options were limited to get married, have kids, mostly, where work was really not the most viable option. Yes, there would have been women who very much were dissatisfied with that. There were women who were very angry about being stuck in marriages that they didn't like. This is well before no-fault divorce. No-fault divorce doesn't come through till the 1970s. Okay? Women got stuck. They got stuck in marriages that didn't work. They got stuck in marriages where there was abuse. They got stuck in marriages where husbands gambled or drank the money away. Women got stuck in a world that they did not like. And Amy, who has got stuck in this world and whose husband has abandoned her, so has broken up their marriage. There is no actual divorce here because that's expensive, but she has been abandoned by her husband. She is one of those people who, no, she didn't really think it through. She was very young. She didn't really think through the whole marriage and children thing, and it turns out it doesn't suit her. It doesn't suit her at all. She doesn't particularly like her children, she doesn't particularly like her life, and so she leaves. She leaves her children with her parents, and she goes to Sydney. Because it's the Depression, she has the perfect excuse. She's going to Sydney to work. She can't take the children with her, but she can go and find a job and provide money. So Amy leaves. And in Sydney, in the big smoke, she finds work, and she finds the kind of life that she could never have imagined when she was choosing the marriage and children life. She finds this life that she wants. She finds a man who is not pushing marriage on her, but at the same time is able to, who they have an adult relationship. They have a relationship. They are not just, it's not a platonic relationship. So she finds this life that she wants. But, and this is what makes this and even more interesting, but the life that she had, she's still attached to, and it's going to come springing back. So if going to Sydney is like she's pulled that rubber band as far back, and she thinks she's pulled it back so that it's she doesn't even remember it's there anymore. But there is so much tension on that when her eldest daughter comes hurtling into her life, it's like letting go of that. It's like having the other end of that let go, and it hits you in the face. And so a great deal of Amy is in the latter part of the novel is all of those judgment things that we are inclined as a reader to give her when we think of the mother who has done this, but after learning about her life in Sydney and seeing how this has grown, all of a sudden having this resentful, angry daughter turn up, you're with Amy. Although you can understand that, you can also understand Amy as well. It is a beautifully written and very subtly written book with a great deal of empathy towards all the characters in it. Now, one of the things about Australian women is, and I mentioned this with Miles Franklin, they're spiky. They're spiky, and they are not here just to make you feel nice. They're not going to smile. They're not going to do that. They are not. They are going to live their lives. And that's really the key theme that runs across the books that we've had a look at so far, is these are women living their lives. These are women being unapologetic about living their lives. Yes, it causes problems. Yes, it doesn't always make them likable. But if you are an adult human being, and women are adult human beings, then why should you not be afforded the right to make mistakes? Why should you have to be perfect all the time? We're not Victorians. It's a lag from Victorians that we have this concept of femininity that is so selfless, self-sacrificing, so giving, so pure, so goddess-like. You know, you want to see what that actually looks like in Victorian writing? Go read Ruskin. I will find the essay. He wrote this horrible, ghastly essay. There is a good reason Effie divorced him. There is a very good reason Effie divorced him. But this image that has come from the Victorians permeates still into how we view women and how we judge women when they fail to stand to certain ideals, certain tropes that we expect them to have. Amy fails at every single one, but we still like her. She fails horribly. But we don't hate Amy. She's not a villain. She is a human being who makes mistakes, who is trying her best. Now, you may not like every action that she takes, but that doesn't mean that she's not allowed to make those mistakes. Joan makes mistakes in Joan Makes History. Sibylla Melville makes mistakes in My Brilliant Career. They are all human, and that is one of the great things that runs across Australian writing, Australian women's writing, and the writing of Australian women. There are some books that I have seen, and they are later books, so that they're later than this. I don't think this started to come in till about the 1990s into Australian writing, and Kate Grenville was obviously writing a long time before this. Part of the problem for Australian literature is we keep forgetting our history. These lovely yellow books are very, very new. These are only been out since about 2012. And it's only been since about then that the idea of, let's actually preserve our literary heritage, someone has actually put money behind that. Previous to this, what you had to do was be in the know or have someone who was in the know who could help you, and you had to scour secondhand bookshops, or you had to borrow them from a well-endowed library. It was very hard to find the Australian novels when I was growing up. When I was growing up, you didn't get Australian novels. There were some blokes, there was some bush, there was some children's classics, but things like this did not exist. And so the ability to write something like what Kate Grenville was writing, what Olga Masters was writing, was not there. And the women in books from about the 90s, and I'm not certain how well it has changed, this is both from male and female writers, were insipid. They were insipid or they were brash. And both of which were really uncomfortable to read, because they were either shrill harridans or so insipid that you wanted to scream at them. And I found it very hard to connect with the writing of my own country because of this, because this is not the kind of person I am. The way I connect is actually with some of these older characters who are fortunately coming back into Australian writing because we have access to our heritage. So Australian women in books are very, very different to anyone else. Okay? You cannot judge them against the women of other literatures because we have a unique history in this country, and that creates a unique view of the world. Amy will not be for everyone. You can take her or leave her, you can judge her. That's up to you. But she does deserve an interesting place in our writing. And I really do think that you should check out Olga Masters because she manages that wonderful tightrope between these are despicable actions, but I can understand her and I can empathise with the doer of despicable actions. It's an opportunity to grow as a reader. So I leave you Amy's Children by Olga Masters, and I will bring you something else next time when we have some adventures in Australian literature. So, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.